Hello, my name is Dr. Trevor Gerhardt, and this is a signature talk, a taster of the future of work and learning, getting into the game and staying in the game. The core idea of this signature talk is that there is a structural gap between learning and performance. And most organizations, we include here workplaces as well as educational and training institutions, are reinforcing this structural gap. So what are some of the audience takeaways? Why does traditional education and training models fail to significantly address the structural gap? What are the actual drivers of work readiness? And is there a practical framework which we can use for integrating learning into the real world of work? Okay, so let's get into it. Getting into the game. Traditionally, there has been four traditional plays. Employability, getting a job, etc., has been based on these four aspects. So let's go through them and just as a taster again, get a little bit of a feel as to why the field has changed, why getting into the game is changing. And we'll look at those again after this more specifically. So the first one is the competitive theory. Look, there can only be one winner. To win, you need to be the best. Think about a sprint race, a 100-meter race in the Olympics. One person gets the gold, the second gets the silver, the third gets the bronze, and the rest, well, they didn't get it. The job market works in a very similar way. You are competing, and therefore you need to be the best at your game. The World Economic Forum suggests that it takes 30 hours to reach beginner level in AI skills, a huge driver in modern day work labor markets, while getting to the advanced level requires about 137 hours. What this is basically saying is that with digital skills in an ever greater demand now among employers and in the workplace, it is actually easier to start learning than you might think. So it's not so much actually that you are competing with AI, you are still competing with your colleagues. The question is, who really wants it? Now let's just give you an example of some of this competition. Graduate vacancies in the UK, as an example, are now down by almost 35% year on year, according to the Times newspaper. A similar picture in China as another market, with 1 in 5 18 to 24-year-olds unemployed. In India, another growing market, as high as 40% unemployment rate among fresh graduates under 25. It's not just about a degree. More importantly, it's about the skills and the experience that come with that degree, your work integrated learning experience, your work-based learning experience. In 2024, the average UK employer received 140 applications per graduate role, a 59% increase on the previous year, the highest in over 3 decades. And applications for graduate roles rose a further 28% in 2025. Competition is rife. Who wants it more? And the next one is the signaling theory. We are sending signals constantly about our suitability for the roles that we are applying. These signals come through on the CV, they come through on the application form, they come through on cover letters, they come through in person during the interview process, they come through in terms of your social media presence, if you have one at all. During normal labor markets, This signaling theory creates two queues, normally an unskilled queue and the signals that are related to the unskilled labor markets, and a skilled queue and the signals that are related to a skilled labor market, and therefore the required skills for each. However, during turbulent labor markets, and this is actually the key significant aspect about the signaling theory, and we are in turbulent labor markets at the moment, these queues merge. They therefore become dysfunctional, and therefore this increases the competition, i.e. the competitive theory. For example, the Times.com reports, and this is the headline, "Why Graduate Jobs Are Going to More Applicants Aged 30 and Over." That was never happening before. There's new competition in an untraditional queue. Therefore, the signals that you are sending have to be unique. They have to be distinctive. Let's move on to the third one, brand equity. It's not just about the workplace interviewing candidates. The candidates themselves are also interviewing the workplace, especially Gen Z. AI economics have only gained around 20% of companies taking advantage of that, says PricewaterhouseCoopers. The World Economic Forum says 80% of tech-focused organizations say that their upskilling is their most effective response to the skills gap, but only 28% plan to actually invest in it over the next 2 or 3 years. Gen Z are watching. Organizations are not ready, and Gen Z are voting with their feet. The gaps in terms of the skills gaps and the employment gaps is not just about not having the right people. It's about people are not applying because you as a brand are not marketing yourself that you are technologically ready. Workplaces are not ready. But sadly, a lot of younger people are being punished for this because they are being caught in these gaps. The final one is value congruence. It's not just about a job. It's not just about job security and money. It's about a career. People are interested in a career. According to the OECD survey on social and emotional skills, younger students, graduates, are already aligning these career aspirations with their skills. They are doing the work. They are doing the job in terms of getting themselves career ready. Gen Z are doing this based on their values. The Deloitte Global 2026 Gen Z and Millennial Survey indicated that 96% of Gen Z, 97% of Gen Y indicated that a sense of purpose at work is crucial for their overall job satisfaction and well-being. Where the workplace does not deliver on that, the workplace is not ready for an AI labor market, AI future, they will vote with their feet, which means we're going to have retention issues. At the moment, Randstad, one of the world's largest HR organizations, indicates that with Gen Z, they stick around for 1.1 years in a particular job. Not because they don't have stickability, but because the organization does not match the same value congruence. They will vote with their feet. All right. So what does this all mean in terms of the future of work and learning? Well, getting into the game, there are 3 significant things that have changed, and they all are interrelated. The first one is that the rules of the game have changed. They have changed and they are changing. We have turbulent, perpetual flux and unstable labor markets. They're volatile, they're uncertain, and there are complex policies. What does this mean in practice? World Economic Forum 2025, 39% of workers' core skills are predicted to change by 2030. The rules are changing even while you are playing the game. 63% of employers say that the skills gap is already their biggest barrier to transformation. They can't change their workplaces because they don't have the right skills mix, but they also don't have the employees because they're not applying, or the wrong ones are applying. They're not attracting the correct ones. When employers were asked what was influencing entry-level hiring decisions, their top ranked ones were, number one, 50% market conditions. The economy is not allowing us to grow. It doesn't matter about the amount of graduates that are out there that can do the job if you're not able as a business to afford extra employees. The market conditions have to be right for growth. Strategic reorganization, particularly in terms of technology, particularly in terms of the future, automation, and what kind of skills is needed and what kind of workforce is needed. And then finally, of course, because of market conditions, budget pressures, 40%. These all ranked above AI-driven productivity, which was only at 25%, and the direct AI adoption, which was only 15%. But of course, these two are interrelated and are connected to those that was highly ranked in terms of their hiring decisions. So the rules are changing. Secondly, the nature of knowledge is changing. I don't need to tell you this. I work in universities, and the amount of information that is now freely available, not just only on the internet, but through programs on ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Copilot, the access to information is quick. Theory is now at the hands of everybody. But the practice of that theory still needs to be done properly and under supervision, and how we apply theory and practice to produce wisdom is still needed in terms of mentoring and coaching. What we're seeing at the moment in the educational sphere is what's called cognitive dumping. Many people are just taking for granted what is being pushed out, and they are just using this without any criticality or any innovation or creativity. They just take the output and they pass it on. We are aware of organizations who've done this, and they have severely impacted their reputation by just using what has been produced. Even what was being produced was not exactly accurate. So where do we stand in terms of knowledge and AI? Let's debunk some of what is out there. At the moment, the two biggest influences on AI in the workplace is narrow AI and general AI. Narrow AI is taking over narrow tasks. This is our procedural things. This is where a lot of the automation is taking place. General AI is where this is being used to solve problems. For example, the development of self-driving cars. And this is probably one of the biggest areas where there is investment at the moment. The two other areas are areas for the future, but at the moment, there is not much impact in the workplace. The first one is super intelligent AI, where it is trying to mimic human intelligence, human skills. This is just theoretical at the moment. We do not see this impacting the workplace. This is where human skills come into play. The other one is self-aware AI. This is the stuff of sci-fi. This is the things that really scare those in this particular industry. But again, we're nowhere near any of this. Knowledge management, therefore, in organizations is really important. What kind of knowledge are we trying to produce within the organization, and how are we trying to manage that knowledge and sharing it across the various different generations and retaining our employees with that particular knowledge. Within the workplace as well, what type of knowledge production are we actually interested in? Often skills are neglected, yes, and therefore we have these skills gaps, but it's not only about skills. It is also still about the level of knowledge. See, knowledge is about cognitive development. The brain is a muscle. When we don't use it, we become brain zombies. When we do use it, we are able to engage in more complex tasks involving problem solving, as well as creativity, innovation, interpersonal skills, etc. These are key cognitive developments related to, for example, emotional intelligence and lifelong learning. We do still need knowledge, but it's a different kind of knowledge, and it still needs to be under the auspices of supervision, such as mentoring and coaching from experts. Secondly, what is changing in the game is the demand. Korn Ferry suggests that companies aren't struggling to find people, they're struggling to find the right mix of skills for how to work in a changing environment. With the increase nature of technology, the level of skill is getting higher, and this means leaving low and medium skills behind. But this also means that there's now going to be an increased job polarization, and this is particularly AI is coming for professional jobs versus the trades who are still safe. But it does mean that the demand is shifting and changing. And so getting into the game means understanding that the rules are changing, that there's a different kind of knowledge that is needed, and the demands are shifting and moving. Getting into the game is complex, it's challenging, but staying in the game is just as big a challenge, which we move to next. Staying in the game again has been based on some traditional linear models, building your career, then pivoting, and then at the later stage you can then leverage. Having resilience and optimism in the beginning, but not career clarity, but later in your career, not having much resilience, not having much optimism, but having very clear career clarity. The pace and play, staying in the game, is no longer that of an escalator or a career ladder. These are no longer appropriate. They're broken and they do not work. All right, so let's go into these in more specific detail. How do we stay in the game? We're talking here about attrition, retention. So first and foremost, the pace. Let's think about the pace in which all of this is taking place. The World Economic Forum estimates that between now and 2030, the tech revolution will create 170 million new jobs. And when they mean new jobs, they mean new skills related to those new jobs worldwide. 170 million. But at the same time, it will be destroying 92 million of others. Meaning those of us who are in those 92 million will need to reskill and upskill in order to stay competitive. The biggest difference between today's transition and its precursors is the pace, the speed. Let me give you an example. The Industrial Revolution happened over more than a century. The technological overhaul spanned a generation. Let's look at specific examples. Radio. It took 38 years to reach 100 million users. TV. It took 13 years to reach 100 million users. The internet took 7 years. ChatGPT, it took 2 months to hit 100 million users. The pace has significantly changed. What about the play? Experts are anticipating a collision between a dearth of mixed skills and a massive technology-driven labor market upheaval. I've made that point already. McKinsey says that by 2030, up to 800 million global jobs will become automated. And a lot of these are the professional jobs, but that bottom rung of the ladder, it's disappearing. However, what makes human beings competitive is the skills of problem solving, your interpersonal skills, self-awareness, that regulation, emotion intelligence, technical expertise, innovation, and strategy. These are all key human skills. In 2023, as an example, PricewaterhouseCoopers had 70,000 applications for 1,618 positions. The civil service in 2023. They had 65,000 applications for 1,400 positions. The NHS, the National Health Services in the UK, 60,000 applications for 1,200 positions. Aldi in retail, they had 30,000 applications for 800 positions. The competition is rife. You need to stand out in the market, and you need to stand out with human skills, but you don't just need a qualification, you need skills and experience. Again, work-based learning, work-integrated learning is so important in making yourself competitive. So what kind of positions are really good in this game that you need to stay in? You need to learn how to learn. Not wait for somebody else to help you to learn or to show you what you need to learn. You need to be on top of your game. You need to constantly know what you need to be improving on and improving in the right things. And this includes unlearning, which means we have to unlearn the old ways in order to learn new ways. And unlearning is harder than you think. We need to increase our own self-awareness. Are we aware of who we are and what we bring? Here, again, I can add value as a DISC, EQ, and Enneagram behavioral analyst, and being able to help people recognize what they bring to the roles, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, how they can adapt, and how they can recover in terms of energy. Therefore, helping you to self-regulate and to use your self-awareness and your self-regulation in empathy in the way in which you are using these as interpersonal skills. We're talking emotional intelligence. So a new framework is what I suggest. A framework that takes into consideration getting into the game, employability, staying in the game, attrition, but that the game is not just about playing the game, it's about a career, the identity work that needs to be done within companies and within institutions as we help people into the world of work. Now, all of this is not just about the person being the best candidate, about them sending the best signals. It's recognizing that these factors are also dependent upon national drivers, international drivers, and industry and sector drivers, and maybe even other things that we can't even measure or think about at the moment because the pace of change is so massive. So I hope you've enjoyed this little taster. There's a lot more. Please feel free to contact me to discuss how you could benefit from some of the ideas in this little taster. Consider me to be a job whisperer or a job translator, translating all the research, the theory, into the real world of work in terms of practice. Up on the screen, you can see the various packages that could be on offer. Don't forget, this particular signature talk is all about the structural gap between learning and performance, and that most organizations, the workplace, as well as training institutions, educational institutions, are reinforcing those gaps. We want to consider and think about why this is, that traditional education and training models are failing, what actually does drive work readiness, and how could we think about a practical framework for integrating learning into the real world of work. Thank you very much. This is Dr. Trevor Gerhardt.